Hey, Captain, come aboard!
Well, if you say so. Now, where are we off to in this? Captain, under the sea.
Today, let's build some underwater scatter terrain. I start out by building all of the sand tiles. Making this is similar to how I made the base for the Calowish apparatus last week. I just mix up a slurry of water, PVA glue, and sand. This mixture works well to get a nice wavy texture in the sand, and it makes it look like it's underwater wave rolled sand. To make the tiles line up a little bit better, I come through and cut off all the excess that has dried hanging over the edge. Doing this again in future, I would put this base coat down before I put down the sand. And this is a creamy tan color that sort of matches the color of the sand and covers up the color of the foam. And that is a super easy sand tile because it's just sand. And now getting started on the scatter terrain, I cut out bases out of double corrugated cardboard. Now normally you would cut something like this out of MDF, but I want to show you how I do it when I don't have any MDF and I keep it structurally strong. And the good part about using cardboard instead of MDF is it's a lot easier to work with because it's a lot weaker. So I can just slice through and make it have a nice gradient to go down to the table. And now to fill those holes, I use a 50-50 mixture of PVA glue and bicarb soda. And this gives a really nice spackle sort of hole filler mixture, which is really good if you don't have any, and it tends to be a little bit cheaper as well. And thanks to the PVA glue, the bicarb soda won't discolor or anything, but I'll definitely paint over it later on. And the great part about that is you can add more PVA glue to make it a bit more runny and add more walking time to it. And with that completely dry, you have a nice little strong base to put your scatter terrain on top of. And I paint that in that creamy tan color. Now for the main scatter pieces, I'm going to be repurposing these aquarium plants. They're stuck together with hot glue in a lot of places, so they can pull apart, or you can just heat it up a little bit and they'll come apart. I'm going to get rid of that yucky green thing at the bottom. And we're going to take that base, we're going to glue it on, and stick in our new structure later on into that hole. And you can do this with a piece of foam as well, so you don't need to specifically reuse the same base. And once that's dry, we'll go through and cover that in that same sand PVA glue mixture. And that's the base done. And the greatest part about this project is its simplicity. It's really cheap and easy. You can get a bunch of these plants for $1 to $2 at a $2 store, especially if they're all on sale. Now, I'm going to be making my own little structure to stick the plants onto. So I'm going to be using a toothpick and cut a bunch of little prodding out pieces, and that will recreate that structure that we're removing. And I only add 2 to 3 plants, 4 at the very maximum, to one of these things. And that fits the scale of little miniatures a lot better than how many plants I had before. And I just paint those green. Some of them I paint red because the plants are red as well. And it's like it's made for it. The place where the plants originally connected sticks nicely onto the toothpicks. So I just cut that to size and fill the hole with hot glue and stick it in. Now, another variant along the same line of this coral and underwater sea plants is these underwater vents. These thermal vents exist in real life and are these, I'm not quite sure, these giant like streams of hot air underwater. So I wanted to remake that because that seems like a really cool and interactive place that you can put on the game board. This dangerous hazard that funnels up with hot air. So I cut a couple of bottles to fit and added some thickness and shape with a hot glue gun. And similar to before, I just completely lather it up and cover it in the same PVA glue and sand mixture. And I'd recommend sticking away from this hot vent. Now, for the underwater corally rocks formations, I use the styrofoam packaging that you would normally get with large appliances. The really bubbly looking foam. Usually it's really hard to work with stuff like this and you have to cover it in plaster. But in this case, we're going to use that texture to our advantage. So I'm just going to cut several layers to layer on top of each other like a layered rock. Using PVA glue to hold it all together, I finish up by sticking a skewer right down the top to make sure it all sticks together nice and tight while it dries. And now for a change of scenery. It's really important to do this outside because I start burning and melting all of that foam. Burning this foam gives a really, really good looking texture and it looks like a underwater alien sort of rock, which I really like and really fits Underdark or underwater. And just burn all over it, and that will harden the foam as well, so you don't need to give it a Mod Podge layer. I will, however, be giving it a layer of black paint. And then a whole layer of magenta paint. And then a dry brush of this marina, this kind of light blue. And man, these rocks look really spooky, like an Underdark or an underwater rock. I really like this purple and blue color scheme. I've used it in all my Underdark terrain so far. Finally, for underwater, I was thinking of adding little cages, like you would catch lobsters or fish in. But I'm going to make them a bit bigger so you can catch people in them as well. So using this granny grating that is ever so famous, I cut a grid that is 14 by 14 and I cut 5 of those and stick them together. And that will be the first cage. Making sure to leave a hole at the bottom, that way I can put it over the top of miniatures on the table. Because these are so large, I kind of want to use them as like prison doors in the future as well. So I cut out a little door from the front of each of them. I then stick them together using this multi-bond. I don't know what it is. It's like this thicker epoxy kind of super glue sort of thing. But super glue was really struggling to stick these together, and this worked a treat. I also did make several smaller crates, some that are 10 by 5 and 5 by 5. They look more to scale with a lobster cage or something like that. And the paint job for all of these is the same. A matte black primer, come through and cover all of it with a gunmetal grey silver. And then to add the rust, I use a grinded up chalk pastel in orange and just water it down a bit and cover everything in that color. and that makes a really vibrant orange rust. And when that's done, I dry brush over with a little bit of silver to return some of that shine to the top. When that is all dry, I hit it with a coat of sealant so that the pigments don't come unlodged.
Yar! These are beautiful underwater sea plants. I don't want to go near those cages, though. Oh, no, no, no. Yar, if you're still watching this far, thank you. Like, comment, and subscribe to see more. See more? Yar! Oh, with a little bit of stuffing. Those thermal vents look like they're gonna implode. They look too hot to go near. And these alien rocks, we truly are under the sea. Or under the dark. They fit right in. And those skewers can come in and out to move the plants if you wish. Wow.